Hello. Welcome to another Find Out Fridays. I'm Kati Presley, the head of UX at Rocksauce Studios, and today I'm going to talk to you about remaining effective while working remotely. By this point, a lot of us probably feel like we're pretty competent when it comes to working remotely. We've been doing it for some time, but it's easy to get stuck in a rut or maybe not feel like you're putting your best foot forward. So I wanted to bring forth some practices that have really helped me as well as my team in keeping that momentum going as we're a remote working team. So the first tip I have today is to be able to compartmentalize. You really need to be able to separate your work brain from your life brain in order to let either of those brains work at 100%. So there's a few tricks to be able to do this. The first one maybe is to set up a different space. You might think that this isn't really possible whenever you don't have any extra space in your house, but it really is, even if it's just assigning a chair to be your work chair. And then when you're sitting in that chair, your brain clicks into work mode, and then you sit in a different chair when it's time to eat dinner or talk on the phone. Same as putting on different clothes. I know that part of the glory from working from home is not really having to put on slacks or jeans anymore. So even if you want to keep that, changing into different lounger pants will help you be able to say, okay, I'm changing my clothes now. That means I'm going to work, and I'm changing back now. And that means it's time for me to hang out with my family. Another trick could be a different soundtrack. You might find that you're more productive when you have hip hop playing in the background, and you become a little more relaxed and not really as effective whenever you're listening to Americana. Kind of take note of those trends, and then you can play these different soundtracks to, again, tell your mind, okay, it's time to go into productivity mode, or it's time to chill out and relax. Both being equally as important. The last note that I'll say about being able to compartmentalize is to have beginning and ending rituals that you kind of do in order to set your brain to the right track. So even if this is as simple as I'm going to make a cup of coffee and then I'm going to go and sit in my work chair, then that is a ritual that can help your brain say, okay, she did steps 1 and 2. Now step 3 is to get started working. Same as the end of the day, maybe it's doing a small stretch, taking your dog on a walk. This ritual is saying, okay, I'm snapping out of work brain and into home life. On that, it's kind of the same note. My second tip is to be able to stick to healthy habits and routines, but also know when you need to adjust them. So one way to do this is to know what your boundaries are and be able to communicate those with your teammates. Everyone has different boundaries that make them more effective at their job, and it's important to be able to communicate those so people understand why you are setting them. If you work better from, say, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., this is something that you can communicate, and perhaps it's something that your team will be able to say, oh, okay, that makes sense. No big deal. But if you don't communicate and you're not seen in the office at 7 a.m., it might be really hard for them to say, why is Kati clocking out at 3 p.m. when we still have a whole workday ahead of us? So it's important, again, to just be communicative and say, this is how I work best. And then, produce the work that proves that, and the team should be on board with it. Another note that I mentioned with being able to adjust your habits is, be able to recognize when something might be losing its value and see how you can change that. So perhaps to get yourself out of a rut, you've committed to taking a walk around the block for 10 minutes. You come back and you're like, oh man, I'm out of my rut. My brain is working. But then maybe a month or so into that routine, you get back and you're still kind of in la land. It's easy to just say, oh, but I have to stick with this routine because it's what works. But you're not being really reflective, and you're not saying, hey, this doesn't hold the same value. It's time for me to switch things up. So just be cognizant of that. And my last note is don't forget to move. It's really important for your body to move. So just keep that in mind throughout the day. Even set little timers that say, hey, it's time to get up and walk every 20 minutes or so. Walk to the kitchen, grab a water, just get moving a little bit, because it's really easy to say, oh my gosh, the day's over. I'm still in my bed with my laptop on. All right, my last tip is to take things to 300%. Now, this isn't to say like put in 300% effort by any means. It's just saying that a lot of your efforts need to be exaggerated to get the same points across. A good example of this is in high school, I was actually my high school mascot. So I was a tiger, and I had this giant tiger outfit. And when I wanted to wave, doing something like this didn't really help. No one knew what I was doing, and I had to like actually say, hey, and that way through all the fabric and layers of the tiger, my hello was clear. It's the same kind of concept when working remotely. Your daily check-ins and status updates, the documentation that you might have when handing something off to a coworker, even, the questions that you're asking during meetings, and even having just because syncs with your teammates, all of this effort, you really need to put a lot more care into it, because you don't have the help of nonverbal cues and casual conversation to push these along. So to really get your point across, make sure that your documentation is thorough, make sure that you're checking in and not losing sight of what your daily tasks are. And it's just really important to put that extra 300% in that way. So these were my tips for remaining effective while working remotely. Man, this world is a crazy place, but it's really awesome what teams can do when they pull through. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.